Tonight you're here to see Dr. Shilagh Mirgain, and she is a clinical psychologist specializing in health and sports psychology at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health. A sought-after speaker, writer, facilitator, and therapist, Shilagh is a frequent contributor to CBS 3 News in Madison and Wisconsin Public Radio. Shilagh is also an accomplished researcher, lecturer, and trainer in the field of mindfulness meditation. In her clinical practice, Shilagh specializes in the treatment of cardiovascular diseases and chronic pain and mood and anxiety disorders. Shilagh is also a sports psychologist to UW Badger student athletes. Tonight, she is here speaking about the whole health approach, which is used extensively through the VA health system and taught nationwide by the University of Wisconsin. This approach provides a holistic overview of many areas of your life that impact your health. In this talk, Dr. Shilagh Mirgain will share strategies on how to achieve your ideal level of well-being, and you'll set personalized goals to help you live your healthiest life. So please join me in a warm welcome for Dr. Shilagh Mirgain.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah. I just want to thank everyone for being here. It's such a beautiful summer evening, so it took extra effort and time and dedication to show up for this presentation. And I want to also welcome all of you who are joining us online. I'm really glad that you're here, and also that you made this a priority to watch this streaming event. And also just want to welcome people who are joining us at a future date watching this online. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to share with you something that I'm really passionate about and has been near and dear to my heart, some of the work I've been doing with the VA system and also with UW Health, and that is this whole health model. And the VA developed this model about 8 years ago, and it's really designed to change the landscape of healthcare, this whole redesign of how we approach healthcare. And I think this is one of the first times that a public audience has heard about it. So I just encourage you to think about what brought you here today, a takeaway that you hope to get, and maybe even one person that you could share this information with. And I like to think that as we're fostering our own well-being, there's really a ripple effect to the people that we get to talk to, the people in our lives, in our community, and the larger world. So as we begin, I just want to say a few acknowledgments, because this is definitely a collaboration, this presentation. As I mentioned, the VA developed the whole health model, and it's taught nationwide by the University of Wisconsin. And I'm one of the consultants that goes out into various VAs across the country training clinicians to use this model with veterans, especially those veterans experiencing chronic pain. And I want to mention two colleagues who also, their material have been incorporated into this presentation. Dr. Adam Reinflesch, who is the head of UW's Integrative Health, a really wise doctor, mentor, and friend to me. And then my beloved colleague, Dr. Christina Gentili, who was at UW and now is at UCLA at their Digestive Health Center. And I'm using some of her material that we developed as part of a Nourishing and Flourishing group we did about a year ago for the psychology of eating. Okay, so let's begin. So I'd like you to just take a few minutes just to do some personal reflection, just to really think about what brought you here. And there might have been something in the title around whole health that you thought, what is that? You know, I think about health, but what would whole health mean to me? And just to think about, if you see yourself at your healthiest, what do you see? What do you envision? What would you be doing? How would you be acting? How would you be feeling? How would you be experiencing life? How would you be interacting with the world around you? And this might feel really far away or an impossibility, or it might actually kind of bring to mind just a few things that you could do to start moving in that direction. And my hope today is that we'll put some winds in your sails, that you'll get a little further along the journey. And I always say that health isn't really a destination that we arrive at. It's more of a path that we set out, and it's really the day-to-day things that we're doing to cultivate our health. So why is whole health so important? Because we look at the state of the world today, and chronic diseases are an epidemic, right? The statistics are shocking, and they get even more shocking when we look at predictions in 2025, 2040, down the road. We find 1 in 2 adults in the US has a chronic disease. 1 in 4 adults in the US has 2 or more diseases. The cost is staggering. It's $2.7 trillion in annual healthcare costs. And if you include mental health, the number goes up to $3.3 trillion spent annually. And 90% of all healthcare costs are expenditures for chronic disease or mental health issues. And then we also see that 50% of Americans are diagnosed with a mental disorder at some point in his or her life. Staggering, right? And we start to think this is just the way the world is. This is just what normal is, right? You age, you're going to get this condition or that condition, and best to just prepare for it. But I think there's another way, right? And when we think about changing the landscape of healthcare, we have traditionally used this medical model that says, what's the matter with you? Where's your pain? You know, where is the number that's too inflated or too low? And we tend to pinpoint the symptom, the symptom, the symptom, the symptom, the symptom. Where does that lead us? Sometimes pretty frustrated. And I think what kind of a metaphor is kind of an iceberg. We're treating the top of the iceberg, the physical symptom, what's wrong? But we forget, and you think about the iceberg, a huge portion of the iceberg is underneath the water. And that's what whole health explores, the things you can't see sometimes, the things you forget about in the busyness of life. And those are things like your life story, right? You have a story, you're writing. Each day is a new sentence, each month is a new chapter. You want it to have a good ending, don't you? Some chapters are kind of cliffhangers, and you think, oh, what's going to happen? Or I'm glad that chapter's over with, right? That's life. Some good stuff, some bad stuff, you know, it's all there. Meaning and purpose. You know, what brought you here? Something in it felt like a purpose that you wanted to take away. Your values, the culture we live in, the culture you're creating in your community, relationships. We'll talk about the power of our mind and how to access that more, really harness the power of our mind. So with the whole health model, instead of saying, oh, you know, what's the matter? We change the conversation to something, I think, that's really at the heart of whole health. And that is, what matters to you? What's meaningful, what's important to you? What matters? And another way of looking at this is, what do you want your health for? You know, so what I'd invite everyone to do, and those who are watching online, take a moment just to reflect on this. And you have, those of you in the audience have a handout, and you hopefully have a pen there too. And I'd like you to just jot down, you can see on the first page, what matters to me. What do I want my health for? What's my map, which is my mission, aspiration, or purpose? So as you are reflecting on that, maybe some things come to mind. I've had people, as I ask them this question, you know, what do you want your health for? I have heard people say things like, I want to be able to play with my grandkids as I age and do the kinds of activities that they want me to do. I've had people say, I want to leave something of value behind. So I want to stay healthy so I can do the kind of community service that I want to do. I've had people say, I just want to make people smile. So I want to make sure that I'm in an emotionally good place, that I can bring some joy to the world and bring some laughter and humor. And for you, each person's going to be different, right? It's your unique northern star or guiding light that is going to provide some of that fuel and inner motivation to really work on various aspects of whole health. So you might just jot down a few more ideas, but I'm curious, as we start to define whole health, before I get to my definition, I'm curious for everyone here, what does that mean to you? Or even when you're thinking about coming tonight, What were some images or ideas that popped up? Sometimes it's nice to think of people who might embody whole health, people who might exhibit a quality that you want, that you're inspired by. My good friend Tara is in the audience, and she's an amazing coach and does a lot of personal fitness online in her business. And she's an inspiration. When I see her post, I always motivates me to get to the gym. That's an example. So I'm curious from the audience around what might inspire you. And when I say the word whole health, what are some of those words or concepts that come up for you? Would anyone be willing to share? Yeah, thank you. Balanced. Yeah. Yeah, great. Great. How about for other people? Longevity. Okay. That's great. Longevity. Yeah, other ones that might come up. You think about people who really embody whole health. What do you see them having or doing or experiencing? Okay. Calm, not stressed, maybe resilient. And I heard another one. There. Activity, they're active. Okay, they're engaged in life. Any other ones? Yeah. Donna. Right, whole health, all encompassing, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, all components working in synergy together. Right, one that comes to mind for me is vitality. People that have that kind of vitality, that zest, that the joy of life. Yeah, great. Okay, so this is the model that the VA developed, the whole health model that you have in your handout. And we're going to be walking through the various components. At the center is you, surrounded by mindful awareness. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the concept of mindful awareness, as well as some simple practices that we can use to really cultivate mindful awareness. And then we're going to walk through the circles of the wheel. I'll share some research. We'll talk about some takeaways, and some of you might also have some ideas of things you've already done that you feel really good about, or maybe you're inspired to incorporate an idea or two. And then on the outer circle are more the conventional and complementary approaches. So that's working with your physician, or maybe doing some integrative health kinds of modalities to foster your well-being. So as again, we go back to that question around what do you want your health for? What is your mission? What is your purpose? Why are you here on the planet? You know, it's a kind of a neat question to ask. I don't know if we ever fully come to the answer, but kind of wakes us up to, yeah, we're here for such a limited time. It goes by so quickly. Why are we here? What do we want to give? What do we want to experience? What really matters at the end of the day? Right? Probably not rush hour traffic. It might be, seeing summer and the sunset and sharing a good meal with a friend. And what do you want your health for? And I'm curious if anyone would be willing to share a thought or two around what came to mind for them around purpose, around mission, around whole health. Would anyone be willing to share a thought or two that they have? Yeah, thank you. For those who are viewing online, I think it was really profound what you said, and so important that our purpose changes over the course of your life. When you were a mom raising kids, that was like the main purpose, making their meals, getting them ready for school, putting them to bed, maybe being a soccer mom, taking them to activities. And now that you're an empty nester, it can really feel like a void. Like, what is my purpose? My kids don't need me as much. And sometimes we have to sit with that to redefine that, to come up with different different stages have different really different meaning. And so you mentioned volunteering or spending time with a friend that I think you brought. Yeah, and some of those simple pleasures are part of what, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I sometimes think, we can compare, oh, this person's mission is better than mine, and I'm such a big fan that it's often the littlest unsung heroes that are making, the biggest impact in those people who don't take the credit, who don't get the acknowledgement. So, yeah, thank you for that. Any other thoughts from people? And I guess I want to, before we dive in, I just want us to think about if I'm cultivating my whole health, even just 1% or 5% or even one step ahead, what would that be like? How might I carry myself differently in the world? How might I interact with other people? How might people remember me differently? And again, that ripple effect that we can create. So when we talk about mission and purpose, I think this stuff is so cool. There was a really interesting study that looked at over 7,000 people on a wide range of ages 25 to 75. And this study followed people for 14 years. And they asked them 3 questions about meaning and purpose. The first one is, I don't wander through life. Second question, I think about the future. The third question, I feel like there's still more to do in life. I don't wander through life, I think about the future, I feel that there's still more to do in life. Just how would you answer that, yes or no? So regardless of age, retirement status, relationships, and depression, there was a survival benefit. People lived longer if they had positive answers to those questions. So again, when we think about me in the center and my mission, having that guiding light, that northern star, can help us live longer, happier, healthier lives on purpose. So we're going to, as I mentioned today, go through the various circles of health, and I'll present some information, some of the research, some practical strategies. And I love this to be interactive, so feel free to chime in with your own ideas or takeaways or even just thoughts that you have. Okay. Oops. So we are going to be working on mindful awareness, okay, and cultivating mindful awareness. So the question is your mind mindful? Are you mindful? Okay. And when we think about mindfulness, and you can even think about how present are you right now? How are you fully present? Are you thinking about dinner or maybe what you have to do this weekend? And mindful awareness is really about being in the present moment, here and now, on purpose, in a particular way. And much of our life is spent on autopilot. We are creatures of habit. We do the same thing we did the day before, the day before, the day before. Anyone walk past, maybe at the workplace, there's a tray of donuts, and all of a sudden you reach for it and you're eating it? Or you might go home and it's just you're on autopilot, kick off your shoes and sit in front of the TV for the rest of the night. Or maybe you're around some people who are really complaining and you find yourself complaining about what's wrong. So it's easy to get into these habits that actually are counterproductive to our well-being. So instead, mindful awareness allows you to free yourself of reactive habitual patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting, promoting balance, choice, wisdom, and acceptance. And if we look at the research, and we're one of the hubs in the world here at University of Wisconsin, Dr. Richie Davidson Center for Healthy Minds, we're seeing that mindfulness and mindful awareness can not only shape our brain and the functioning of our brain, but can also influence our physiology and our emotional well-being. And we find things like practicing mindfulness, cultivating mindfulness, mindful awareness, reduces anxiety, depression, rumination, anger, and distress. It improves quality of life, creativity, attention, concentration. And also, one study found that it enhanced spirituality, values, increasing empathy, and fostering self-compassion. Another study found that it was a review of 4 different mindfulness studies, and these studies trained people in mindfulness over the course of about 8 weeks. And they found that at the end of the 8 weeks, people's telomeres at the end of the chromosomes were longer, which indicated that as we age, our telomeres shrink. So by lengthening the telomeres from epigenetics, people were potentially increasing the length of their life. So mindfulness impacts the pathways in our brain, the structures of our brain. It impacts our physiology, as well as it potentially impacts our expression of our genetic coding. So we're going to do a brief mindful awareness experience, because I can talk about mindfulness and mindful awareness, but that's very different than you actually experiencing it. So we're going to do a 5-3-1 practice. The first thing I would like you to do, just take a few moments to center in, feeling the chair underneath you, your feet on the ground. And those of you joining online can do this as well. Just getting comfortable. Just see if you can drop into the moment a little more fully. You might notice your breathing, the feel of the chair beneath you. And just scanning your body from the top of the head down to the tips of the toes. Just being, out of doing mode, just being here. Then we're going to start with the 5. I invite you to just hear 5 different things in this room. Might notice my voice, maybe some rustling. You might even observe how sound comes and goes. Or hearing your own breathing. Then I invite you, if your eyes are closed, to open them gently and just look at 3 things in this room. Noticing maybe with that beginner's mind as if you're seeing it for the first time. And then I invite you to just notice the feeling of something. Maybe it's your hands on your lap. Maybe it's the sensation of your feet and your shoes. Maybe an item of clothing touching your skin. And just ending by being present here and now, fully alive, alert, and awake. Just bringing all that you are into this moment. So with this practice, we're using anything as a focal point. It could be sound, it could be a smell, it could be something we're seeing. It could even be an internal sensation like your breath. And one of the practices I really like to do are the 3 Ps. Whenever I'm transitioning from one thing to another, it's a really nice practice to fully arrive. We can spend so much of our time thinking about the future or ruminating about the past that we can cultivate mindful awareness again to get present so we're fully there. And from that place, we can really make good choices in the direction of our whole health. So the 3 Ps are first to pause, to stop what you're doing. Where's your mind? The second P is presence. Bring your attention into the moment and breathing deeply and asking, what is this situation asking of me? And the third P is to proceed, using mindful speech, action, positive intention. It would be a good thing as you're arriving home, before you take the key out of the car, do the 3 Ps to fully be present with your loved ones. Or maybe you're going to a stressful work situation, a work meeting. Do the 3 Ps to fully arrive. Or maybe you have a challenging conversation with somebody. Try this to fully show up. Okay. So a few other ideas that you might use mindful awareness when you first wake up or before going to sleep, doing a little mini meditation of mindfully observing 5 breaths, or during the day, just becoming aware of your body as you're moving, areas of tightness, releasing tension on the out-breath, unhelpful patterns of thinking and coping, or just waiting in line, noticing your breathing, posture, connection to the ground, all of those. Okay. Or even just daily activities, you're brushing your teeth, washing the shoes, putting your shoes on, driving. Okay. So we're going to work with the first circle here, which is the power of your mind. And as a culture, we don't tend to really harness the power of our mind to the extent that other cultures do. So I'm going to share some simple strategies today, and you can even think about in your own life, how can you take more responsibility for the shaping of your brain, what you're focusing on? I think we live in a time where things are hooking our attention all the time. They're hijacking our focus. And the power of the mind is to put us back in the driver's seat. There are things we can do, again, to create healthy minds. So we're going to talk about 2 different areas here. The first is really looking at how can we use our mind to create greater physiological regulation. We live in a really stressful time. Dr. Herbert Benson, who's a cardiologist out of Harvard, way back in the 70s, talked about we have this part of our central nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, or the stress response, that gets stressed a lot of the time. And we find that many of our chronic diseases like heart disease or cancer, stress is a contributing factor. So he coined the term the relaxation response that we can really harness to create better balance in our system that has been linked to a lessening of some of these chronic diseases. So with this relaxation response really lowers all the indicators of stress in our system. Like it helps lower our breathing rate, our blood pressure, our heart rate, our blood sugar, adrenaline, and it actually increases things like our thought processes, creativity, concentration, immune system, and digestive tract. So when we're stressed and that sympathetic nervous system happens, one of the ways that it's fueled is through chest breathing. When we're chest breathing, and many of us spend a lot of our days chest breathing, that revs up that sympathetic nervous system, and it's really hard on our body, our physiology. Instead, we can work on belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. It's one of the best things we can do to help regulate our physiology, to bring mental focus, and it actually enhances performance. So I'd like us to practice this skill. I encourage you to first put a hand on your chest and a hand on your stomach, and just take a few breaths and notice where in your body you're breathing. And we're going to work with a breathing practice of breathing in and trying to lengthen the out-breath. So you might breathe in for 3 or 4, and on the out-breath, breathe out for maybe 6 or 8. And when we're doing this, we're trying to, instead of breathing up in our chest, which is called stress breathing and my shoulders are going up and down, we're trying to breathe slower and lower in the body as we breathe in. Stomach is expanding with air like a balloon filling with air. And as we breathe out, stomach is going in towards the spine like a balloon deflating. So breathing in, stomach is expanding with air like a balloon filling with air. As we breathe out, stomach is going in towards the spine like a balloon deflating. And if you're struggling with this, one of the ways to do this at home to really access that diaphragmatic breathing or slower, lower breathing is by laying on your stomach in bed. If you lay on your stomach in bed, you'll naturally deep belly breathe. So just trying that again, breathing in, slower and lower in the body, 3 or 4. Breathing out, 6 or 8. You see a lot of professional athletes do this. Aaron Rodgers will take 1 deep, intentional breath to stabilize his mind. And then he thinks about, what's the next play that I need to do? Okay, and so I'm wondering how many people here are feeling a little calmer, a little more mental clarity? Okay, we see a bunch of people raising their hands. Great. So one study, I thought this was fascinating, found that intentionally changing your breathing pattern can account for 40% or more of the variance in your feelings of fear, anger, sadness, or joy. If you're breathing slower and lower, you're much more likely to experience joy, versus when you're in those more distressing emotions, you're much more likely to constrict your breath and breathe more shallowly. A fascinating study found that when people were reciting Ave Maria or the yoga mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, their breathing rate slowed to about 6 breaths per minute. And some research shows that when, again, we're breathing slower and lower, people have an optimal breathing resonance. For many people, it's around 6 breaths per minute. It ranges between 4.7 to 8 breaths a minute. When we get in this optimal breathing resonance, our system flourishes. Everything is getting into alignment, and there's coherence, and all our systems working together in harmony. So as you're practicing breathing slower and lower, to see if you can breathe maybe down to 8 breaths a minute or 6 breaths a minute. There's a great app, Breathe to Relax. It's a breathing trainer that you could use to actually help you work on slowing and lowering your breathing to maybe around 6 breaths per minute. Okay, so breathing properly, using this breath, you're breathing anyway, using it to really fuel more optimal health in the body. The second is working with your thoughts. Our thoughts can be sticky. Our thoughts can hook us. We can have a lot of negative thoughts. A lot of the thoughts we think are the thoughts we thought the day before, right? And they kind of, often a lot of the noise is the thoughts that we're thinking about, some version of what's wrong. So I just want to share a technique I recently learned about. It's out of the work of Byron Katie. She's written a couple different books. One is Loving What Is, great author. And she talks about this concept of the work, of working with those sticky thoughts. And she has 4 questions and a turnaround. So when you have a thought that comes up, like, oh, I had an example here, like, oh, I don't like John because he doesn't listen to me. I don't like that John. He just doesn't listen to me. He just ignores me. Then you ask the first question, is that true? I don't know. I just don't like John because he doesn't listen to me. And the second question, can you absolutely know that it's true? Well, maybe, can you ever really know if somebody's listening to you? I probably had lots of times people thought I wasn't listening, but I actually was. And it's maybe he was listening even though he appeared not to be. The third question, how do you react when you think that thought? That thought, I don't like John because he doesn't listen to me. Creates a lot of distress. I feel a lot of upset, kind of getting me out of balance. How do you treat the person? I probably am cold and aloof and angry. How do you treat yourself? Well, maybe I don't sleep so much, or maybe I turn to too much food or alcohol. And what would you be without that thought? Probably be a happier person, and things probably would go better with that John. And then turn it around. And I think this place is powerful. It's doing a 180. So you turn it around and you start to say, maybe I'm not listening to myself. Maybe I'm not taking myself that seriously. Maybe I'm so busy listening to everyone that I've stopped listening to my own inner voice. Or maybe I've stopped listening to John because I'm judging him. Maybe I'm putting the barrier between me and him. And in that, there's often more peace, more acceptance, and then there's greater capacity to love, not creating these roadblocks or barriers between you and him. So think about using these 4 questions, especially for those sticky thoughts where we're getting into rumination or judging of people, to turn it around and see it maybe from a really different perspective. Right? Again, we tend to not see things clearly. We see it from our own point of view. And I found that this really opens things up so we can open to a larger perspective. Yeah. Yep, Byron Katie. She has a couple books, but Loving What Is one of her classic books talking about the work that she calls it. Okay, great. So now we're going to talk about surroundings. Those surroundings that might be our physical or emotional, our environment. We often don't think about this when we think about whole health. But when you come home at night, how do you feel when you open up the door? When you arrive maybe in your workplace, What is that like in your cube or office? Your car. How's your car looking these days? Is there a lot of clutter, or does it feel kind of spacious? So we can create healing environments for ourselves. Creating places that really nourish us, nourish others, that maybe are places that feel calm or sources of inspiration. So you can just think about those places, and are they cluttered or spacious? Do they bring you joy, nourishment? Do you love them? Does it lift your energy when you think about it and look at it? This is an area I'm personally working on. I'm trying to clear out clutter, opening up those drawers that you shove stuff in and getting rid of stuff. My parents are visiting this weekend, and I just I cut up some fresh flowers from my garden and put them into their room where they're sleeping, just to bring, kind of practicing what I'm preaching here. And we know one of the ways to really amplify an environment is to bring in nature and connect with nature. There was a famous systematic review of 12 studies looking at how close people live to green spaces. And they found that for people who lived the closest to green spaces, they had 30% lower odds of hospitalization for heart disease and stroke. That's kind of fascinating. We find that even if we can bring nature in, or we know people who are hospitalized that have a window overlooking nature or bringing in nature in with flowers, actually there's some research that shows people recover faster. And then you can think about, are there some ways to cultivate comfort and joy? You know, maybe you light a candle or have some art that you've created or bought to inspire, or maybe you just have pictures of loved ones and friends around that make you smile. We can live in a really noisy environment, right? There's all this noise all the time. Sometimes a little bit of quiet allows in that spaciousness something new to emerge. So can you turn off the TV, or maybe you want some soothing music, or it might be fun to listen to a baby gurgle, a small animal, or maybe you light a fire and listen to a crackle. Are there things you can do? And then you could think about another area, which is just smells. Are there smells like essential oils, or boiling cinnamon, or baking a bread or cake, or walking in the woods after it's rained? Or just having soothing touch, having that blanket you cuddle in or wrap around you in the wintertime, or taking a bath, or petting a dog, or having a massage. Great. So I'm curious, does anyone here have any ideas around ways that they've created environments that feel supportive and inspiring? Any other ideas from the audience of things you've done?
I'm sure a lot of us have put pictures up on the walls, family, friends, quotes, stuff like that.
Okay, pictures of family, friends, but quotes, that's a great idea.
That's what I have in my room.
You do some quotes. Okay, inspirational quotes, or?
Yeah, and grateful quotes, stuff like that.
Okay, great. Gratitude, grateful quotes, yeah. Yeah, that's something to that, right? Seeing those words as you're walking by can really change your mindset or really highlight what's important. Yeah, any other ideas from people? Great. So we're going to just spend a little bit of time talking about personal development, becoming a lifelong learner. And, personal life, work life. And as we're going along with this on your handout, this back side, you could even think about, how are you doing with each of these areas? Where am I now and where do I want to be? So you can think about, we've talked about the power of the mind, how am I doing there, surroundings, where am I now, 1 to 5, where do I want to be? So as we think about personal development, how am I doing? And the goal isn't to get 5 in all areas, because I think that's really unrealistic, but to make sure that, especially those areas that feel important and meaningful, that we're moving in the direction of the number that we want to be at. So we often think about personal development in our younger years, when we're kids or our college age. We don't think about personal development in midlife or even in retirement years. And I think there are two ways to look at this. And the first is to think about at the end of our life, how do we want to be remembered? What kind of legacy do we want to leave? At our 90th birthday party, what do you want people to say when they're celebrating you? How will you have left them feeling? What will be some of their top memories of you? And again, I think that can help when we think about personal development. We can think about it in a broad range. Are there hobbies I want to cultivate? Are there experiences I want to have? Are there parts of myself I want to develop? Like, you mentioned the gratitude, being more grateful, telling people how much I appreciate them. Do I want to be maybe more courageous? Or do I just want to learn chess, or I want to plant some trees. So something's surviving beyond me, like those trees that I've planted, that will grow up to 30 feet when I'm just dust. And the second thing that I'm always such a fan of are bucket lists. Anyone else have a bucket list? I love bucket lists. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. I'm going to check off one. I want to go to Tangent on my bucket list. It's kind of a small thing. I'm going afterwards. Yeah, it's my personal development. I've never been. Have people been to Tangent, the restaurant? Yeah, okay. So it could be something like that. I'm going to a new restaurant. Or it could be I'm going to learn harp, or I want to see the Taj Mahal. But again, when we think about personal development, bucket lists are really interesting because they say at the end of our life, they never wish that we had worked more. We never wish we had accumulated more possessions. Instead, what people long for when they're on their deathbed are experiences that they wish they had had the hope and courage and persistence and tenacity to actually go for those dreams and achieve them. And again, those bucket lists are at the end of my life. I don't want to kick the bucket without having done this, without having experienced this. And sometimes we have to dedicate years to achieving them. We have to save money, or maybe we have to learn skills or get in shape to achieve that big thing. But man, it's so worth it. I think those bucket lists, when we do reach them, give us something indescribable. So you can think about personal development. Yeah, I'm this lifelong learner. How am I growing? I like this concept that there's part of us that is physically aging, but there's part of us that is de-aging, becoming more enlivened as we age. It might be wisdom, it might be perspective, it might be a depth of knowledge in an area. And I think that goes back to personal development. Okay. So we are going to the next area, working your body, energy and flexibility. And that concept of de-aging, if we work in our body, movement helps prevent, treat a myriad of diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. A lot of health benefits, not only physically, but reduces dementia risk. It enhances executive function and attention, processing speed, memory. It promotes brain growth, cell growth, improves psychological well-being, reduces depression and anxiety, and associated with lower all-cause mortality rates. There's a great video on YouTube by Dr. Mike Evans, who talks about what would it be like if we just took half an hour most days to move, to exercise. And they often talk about how sitting is the new smoking. And movement, we always say motion is lotion, and if you don't use it, you lose it. So, getting up to move, and it can be so many different ways to get exercise. It could be warm water pool, or stretching, or yoga, or tai chi, or chair yoga, or bike riding, or climbing stairs. Or I had a woman today say, I'm climbing up and down stairs, doing my laundry. Is that exercise? And I said, absolutely. Some people pay good money to get on that Stairmaster, but you're just doing it with the 5 loads of laundry. So, all right. And I just had to share this fascinating study. I just learned about it recently. They looked at 162 healthy middle-aged female twin pairs, tracked them over time. They looked at their leg power 10 years earlier, and then track them 10 years later. Those with the sturdiest legs had the least fall off in cognition. Leg power predicts both cognitive aging and global brain structure. Again, so working on physical fitness, good for your body, but really good. It's one of the best things we can do with neuroplasticity for our brain, keeping the brain healthy. So we're talking about movement. So we're going to do a movement break. Now, I, at the VA, get to present with amazing VA colleagues and facilitators. And so this movement break, I am using this from Dr. Yanni Navarez, who's at the VA, and she and I co-presented a few weeks ago, and she did this movement break that was really fun. So I'm not going to be quite as good as her, but because she's phenomenal with this. So what I invite us to do, and I'm going to try to simulate what she did, if you would be willing to stand up. And we're here in Madison. Those of you viewing online can do this as well. And it's summertime, and guess what? We have beautiful lakes, and we're going to go swimming. So our friend calls and says, let's go swimming. You said, heck yeah. So you pick up the phone, you say yes, you put it down, and oh my goodness, upstairs is the bathing suit. So you got to run upstairs. We're all going to run up those stairs, get in our exercise, and then we get to the closet. We're going to open up the closet. Oh, got to close it. No. Oh, we're going to open it. Okay, and then way up at the top shelf is the bathing suit. Whoa, let's get that. Okay, and we get it. Okay, so we're going to put the bathing suit on, but oh, I kind of gained some winter pounds, so it's a little tight, but we're going to get it on, and we're going to run back downstairs. Okay. Oh, okay. And guess what? We forgot the towel and lotion, so we got to run back upstairs. We're going to run back upstairs, run back upstairs. Okay, go again, the closet here, and oh, we're going to maybe open this closet, and then we got to get out the towel. So, whoa, again, it's way up here. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, we got it, and then the lotion's way over here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, we have the lotion. We got to put it on, so we're going to put that lotion on the body. Okay, we're going to maybe put it on our face, back maybe for those who have some bald spots. The guys in here are going to put it on the top of the head, and then the legs, all the way down the legs. Okay, good. Okay, one last thing. We're going to grab the hat. Whew. We're going to run back down, putting the hat on. Whew, that's a little tight too. Okay, and we're ready for the beach. Take a breath. Okay, and then you can sit back down. All right. Yeah, oh, thanks you guys. Yeah, we'd be a fine-looking crew at the beach, I would say. Okay, so again, movement can be fun, right? Sometimes we feel like, oh, I've got to get to the gym. Find fun ways to move. And again, you can rate yourself how you're doing. The next area, food and drink. Nourishing and fueling our body. And again, I'm giving credit to Dr. Christina Gentili for this next portion because she's been such an expert that I learned so much from. Food is our fuel, right? Yeah. And sometimes the fuel we're putting in our body causes us to kind of start to break down. We can think about, what are you running on? You know, are we running on those quick, fast foods, those sugar highs? The modern American diet, mad. Sometimes it's a bit mad, right? Fast food nation. And we can think about the modern Wisconsin diet, you know. We're kind of a lot of beer and cheese curds and brats, right, especially in summertime. And we can think about the impact on the modern American diet or the Wisconsin American diet on wellness. And we find, that it impacts our overall well-being, our mind, our body, even our actions and behaviors. So food can really be medicine, and one of the things we can think about is eating the colors of the rainbow as we think about food as medicine, eating all those colors. So here are just a few pointers or tips. The first one is to really choose complex carbohydrates, whole grains, whole oats, buckwheat, vegetables, quinoa, legumes. The second is to make sure we're getting those healthy fats, things like avocado, salmon, shrimp, yogurt, making sure we're getting good protein, lean meats, eggs, dairy, nuts, seeds, legumes. Hydration, the importance of water. And I thought this was fascinating. We get dehydrated, our brain volume shrinks. And mild dehydration also impacts our mood, with mood swings, anxiety, tension, irritability, poor sleep, tiredness. So hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Okay, and we also want to make sure we're getting antioxidants and phytonutrients as well. Antioxidants and phytonutrients. And how to do that? One is just berries. One of the best ways. Having berries could be a regular food that we eat. After I worked with Dr. Gentili, now berries have become something I eat almost every day. Leafy greens also, is really important too. And then we can have things like the smart brain foods, like dark chocolate. Sometimes we need a treat. Making sure it's dark chocolate as well. And green tea can be a powerful antioxidant as well. And it contains less caffeine than coffee. So, I'm not a nutritionist, so there's definitely experts out there to turn to. But again, when we think, let food be thy medicine, that was something that I believe Hippocrates said way back when. But as my psychologist, I want to talk about some strategies to just really cultivate mindful awareness around what we're eating. And the first thing is to practice mindful breathing before eating. Just taking a mindful breath. I worked with a professional athlete a few years ago who was, because part of the training was eat really quickly, get the food done so you can get to work out. I've worked with people in the military who also had that same training, got to eat because I got to get to combat. And with those people that I've worked with, this is one of the things we do. You sit down to eat, take 3 mindful breaths before you start eating. And what we find is that when we do this kind of mindful breathing, it better supports absorption of nutrients, it minimizes risks of digestive upset, and creates more optimal digestive health. Really, that mind-gut connection we can cultivate through just taking a few mindful breaths. The second is slow down with the pacemaker. Adding just 3 to 4 minutes to your meal can make a significant difference to your health and weight. There was a fascinating study where subjects' dinner lasted 16 minutes on average. Those people whose average dinner lasted 16 minutes on average, those people were at greater risk for being overweight compared to those who sat down for an average of 20 minutes. So 16 minutes to 20. So a good friend of mine learned about this. So I had dinner with him, and he got out a timer for us. It was kind of it was like, okay, here we go. So and he was like, we're eating too fast. He said, we're going to pause. We're going to converse. And so he said, okay, for the next 3 minutes, we're going to put our fork down, and we're just going to talk. And I said, really? He said, yeah. And so we started talking. And we got to that 20-minute mark. And he made it kind of fun, but it pointed out, yeah, I probably rarely take 20 minutes. So you could even do this at home with that timer, putting it to 20, and then pausing the family for 3 minutes to have a good, to converse for a few minutes. So, okay. So this is another interesting study. So which amount has the most food here? They're all the same, right? And this was a study that Dr. Brian Walsnick did an experiment where people were given different size bowls or plates. And the people who had the larger plate consumed 16% more food, but they mistakenly estimated they'd eaten 7% less. They ate 16% more, but they mistakenly estimated that they had eaten 7% less. And we find that when food covers 3/4 of a plate, it's more aesthetically pleasing. I was presenting about this on CBS, and one of my friend's 7 or 10-year-old kids saw it. And he was like, Mom, I saw Shilagh on her news segment. And he said, what I learned is we need smaller plates. So my dessert looks more yummy and appetizing. So think about it, Get those little plates out when you're getting your treat. And then lastly, think about cultivating gratitude at your plate. This is one of my favorite restaurants in San Francisco, Cafe Gratitude, that on their plates and bowls they have "What are you grateful for?" written. So as you're eating, then you can think about, yeah, I'm grateful for this food and all that went into making this food and delivering it to me, or grateful that it's finally summer in Madison, or grateful that I'm here with all of you. Okay, so just thinking about that food and drink, rest and or recharge, sleep and refresh. Okay, so recharging. So we are a sleep-deprived nation, right? Study after study is showing we're getting less sleep than our ancestors and the generations before. And again, that's really, it creates vulnerability for health issues. This is some research that looked at people who got 5 hours of sleep compared to 7 hours of sleep. And they found, again, those who got 5 versus 7, they were at greater risk for things like obesity, hypertension, diabetes, elevated lipids, stroke, and 152% increase in heart attacks. Whoa. So when we're thinking about sleep, there's a whole area of sleep hygiene that we don't have time to go into today, but a few things. The importance of light. When we first wake up, especially in the winter, it's so important to get light, and if you can, natural light, opening up the blinds or drapes, stepping outside or turning on the lights in the house. And at night, it's really important to have dark. That's why our lights from all our gadgets really impact our sleep and not only falling asleep, but the quality of the sleep and the depth of the sleep. Because melatonin, the hormone melatonin, is inhibited with light, but it's stimulated with dark. So melatonin, again, that hormone that signals to the body it's time to sleep, time to sleep. A few other strategies from sleep hygiene. It's so important not to take your worries to bed. I ran a sleep group a few years ago, and one of the things we had participants do was to do a little journaling before bed, a couple minutes. Just 2 to 3 minutes, writing out their worries. Some people got a little box, a life box or God box, and wrote out their worries and put it in the box and said, life, you take these worries, or God, you take them. I'm not going to worry about them. It's up to you. Exercise earlier in the day, again, very helpful for sleep. Any relaxation, we talked about the deep breathing. The one relaxation practice really helpful for sleep is something called progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense muscles on the in-breath. On the out-breath, you relax the muscles, and you just go from the top of the head down to the tips of the toes. Doing that at bedtime, really helpful for falling asleep. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night, you could think about doing that, can really help go back to sleep. Creating a bedroom sanctuary, maybe have blackout shades or a noisemaker, or maybe use some aromatherapy like lavender on the pillow to help fall asleep. Having those blue filters on electronics, and melatonin and valerian as supplements can be helpful. So this next slide's kind of a cool one. This was some mindfulness research that talked about a mindfulness sleep induction that helps you fall asleep. So you go through this position, which is like a fetus position, to the log, so you're kind of curled up, right? To the log position, you're like a log. Then you roll over to the yearner. You're yearning for somebody next to you, but they're not there. Then you become like the soldier on your back. Ready? And then you become the free faller on your stomach, like you're skydiving and free falling. And then you lastly end up in the starfish. Kind of beautiful? So you might try that at home. From the fetus to the log, yearner, soldier, free faller, starfish. Okay. And then we can think about vacation and refueling and refreshing. So when you take a vacation, are you taking vacations? Yay! I want to give gold stars to everyone. There was research from Project Time Off that found as a nation we're taking a week less of vacation annually than we did 15 years ago. And and we find it is estimated that Americans leave 429 million vacation days unused every year. So we know it's the best way to recharge, right, is to take that break. Or even if you can't travel somewhere, a staycation is really good too. And just to think about what refreshes and energizes you during the day. Maybe doing a little movement like we did. Seemed to kind of energize everyone. So again, just think about that area, how you're doing with recharge. Okay, and then family, friends, and coworkers. One of the themes tonight has been relationships are part of whole health and really the joy of life. And we also find that we are becoming increasingly isolated. There's an epidemic of loneliness, and it's so problematic. There was a 2015 meta-analysis of 70 studies that found that when we start to get isolated, disconnected, it's a health hazard. That social isolation led to 29% higher likelihood of dying. If you're lonely, 26% higher likelihood. Living alone, 32% likelihood. And this was consistent across gender, length of follow-up, and world religion. Some research is suggesting social isolation as loneliness is comparable with other risk factors for mortality, like smoking. It can be as damaging to health as smoking because it's associated with inflammation and chronic disease. There was a fun study, or this is a fun picture of a tortoise that lost its mama in the tsunami, but it imprinted on the hippo. The hippo lost its mommy in the tsunami, but it imprinted on the tortoise, and they were best buds. When we look at the animal world, that if an animal is stressed, but it's surrounded by a familiar companion, it doesn't have that same plasma cortisol spike than when it's alone. When it's alone, they have that increase in plasma cortisol by 50%, but when there's that companion, it doesn't have that same kind of stress in the system. And again, we don't need tons and tons of friends. The health benefits are really the quality of the friendships and not so much the number, but having people that we can just be real with and know us and get us. And so you can just think about, in your own life, how have you gone about maintaining social support? What are the benefits you've gotten? And how do you make new friends, right? I think as we age, it's hard to make new friends. It takes some effort. This might be an area that you put some effort in. And I think one of the ways we can do this is by finding common ground, finding similarities versus disconnect. So I'm going to, before we go to our some of our last things, I'm just going to have us do just a little mini practice for just a few minutes, and it's called the Just Like Me practice. The Just Like Me practice. So I'd like you to think about just somebody in your life. It could be somebody you don't know very well. It could be somebody that you care about deeply. Maybe even somebody you're having a little stress with, a little conflict. And I invite you to get into a comfortable position. We're just going to do this for just a few minutes. You might close your eyes or just have a softened, lowered gaze. And I invite you to just tune inward. Just start off by taking a couple deep cleansing breaths. And I invite you to just bring that person to mind. Person you know really well, or maybe somebody, an acquaintance, or even a bit of a stranger, or somebody you care deeply for, or somebody even some conflict with. Just become aware that this is a fellow human being just like you. Just picturing this person in front of you, just consider the following words. This person has a body and a mind just like me. This person has feelings, emotions, and thoughts just like me. This person has in his or her life experienced physical and emotional pain and suffering just like me. This person has at some point been sad, disappointed, angry, or hurt just like me. This person has felt unworthy or inadequate, just like me. This person worries and is frightened sometimes, just like me. This person has longed for friendship, just like me. This person is learning about life, just like me. This person wants to be caring and kind to others, just like me. This person wants to be content with what life has given, just like me. This person wishes to be free from pain and suffering, just like me. This person wishes to be safe and healthy, just like me. This person wishes to be happy, wishes to be loved just by me. And then you might allow some wishes for well-being to arise. I wish that this person have the strength, resources, and social support to navigate the difficulties in life with ease. I wish that this person be free from pain and suffering. I wish that this person be happy and peaceful. I wish that this person be loved. Because this person is a fellow human being, just like me. Just coming on back. Okay, and again, that kind of practice really creates bridges despite all the differences to see the commonalities. All right. Okay. And then we're working on the last circle, spirit and soul, an area that isn't often addressed in healthcare. Lots of aspects of spirituality. It could be religious, humanistic, nature, experiential, cosmos, mystery. You might ask yourself these questions. What gives you a sense of meaning or purpose? And then what is it that makes you feel a part of something bigger than yourself? Is it looking up at the night sky? Is it staring into the eyes of your grandchild? Is it, I don't know, going and even doing some computer work or some carpentry? You know, lots of different ways to create with spirit and soul. And it's fascinating. Research shows that having some spiritual or religious practice can be really helpful for health. We see some research that was done, lowered blood pressure, people who had greater compliance with medication, exercise more, eating healthier, quitting smoking more readily. And there was a fascinating study that looked at, especially for women, people who attended weekly church services, and found that it lowered mortality, especially in women. There was a 19-time higher risk of death from all causes of no services versus weekly services for over 8 years, and a 7.5 longer life expectancy, lowering stress hormones and lipids. So in your own way, and again, there's so many myriad ways to work on spirit and soul. What connects you with something larger than yourself? So we've gone through all the circles. There's the outer rung around conventional and complementary approaches, which is the last area here. So I want to just end with reflecting on these final reflection questions. And you can think for yourself what your answer might be. First, now that you've thought about what matters to you in all these areas, what is your vision of your best possible self? Has it changed? Has it been adjusted? Has it been modified? Things been clarified? Or maybe there are more questions. It's all good. What would your life look like? What kinds of activities would you be doing? And then I invite you to just set a health goal. Is there one small step that you can commit to working on, an area to focus on, related to your whole health? And you might write it down there in that last reflection. What might you start? And it's nice to reflect on and even write something down, because we find we're more likely to commit to it and actually do it if we write it down. You might even think about sharing it with somebody, maybe somebody here in the audience after we wrap up, or maybe when you go home tonight, or even tomorrow with a coworker or friend or neighbor. And I just want to put in a plug. As I mentioned, UW is really leading some of the education around whole health across the VA, but we also are using it in our own UW Health. So there's a UW Health and Wellness Clinic that provides physician consults, group medical visits, and health coaching using this model. I did bring some flyers of their events on that table and that table. So if you're interested, please pick one up. And they also have a really awesome wellness studio, aquatic center, and learning kitchen as well. I have some upcoming talks, very excited about. I'll be here at our first Dream Summit, a whole day, or a whole couple days. 2.5 days. Oh, it's like bliss for dreamers, a whole Dream Summit. So I'll be speaking right early in the morning on October 3rd on the topic Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time. And then December 5th, I'll be coming back right before the holidays, looking at loving what arises and cultivating healthy relationships. And I just want to, again, thank everyone for being here. You are a wonderful audience. And I have my email up here also on the sheet. I do have a professional Facebook page, Dr. Shilagh Mirgain. You're very welcome to like that professional page, Dr. Shilagh Mirgain. I post articles and try to share information about how you can continue to cultivate your whole health. So thanks for everyone here. Thanks for everyone tuning in online. And I just appreciate all of you. Thank you.